Off-season mailbag part 1, hearing from fans about what's on their mind about the Pacers, what they're thinking about going forward, and addressing it right here on Locked On Pacers. Part 2 coming later this week. Let's answer your questions coming up right here on Locked On Pacers.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today I'm recording this like a week before this is coming out, so apologies if I've missed something topical. It's August, and I wanted to hear what fans wanted to know about a mailbag, as we do every offseason at some point. Splitting this one into 2 parts. So 6 questions today, 6 questions on Friday as we continue through here. So much to get to today. A lot of free agency / extension / offseason talk. Who could improve in what ways? How this team could approach the coming trade deadline during the season. Ooh, already questions looking that far ahead, eh? But that's important stuff to contextualize for the Pacers, set expectations, and all sorts of stuff like that. If you submitted a question on either Twitter or Blue Sky and you're like, why didn't you, Tony, answer that today? It is coming on Friday. I screenshotted the first batch of questions I got. Then when it became too many, I said, uh-oh, and I deleted the tweets and stuck with these 12. Okay, let's get rolling. Number 1, if I'm looking down a lot, it's my phone, so I can look at the questions. Comes from Adam Aronson, one of my faves, covering the Sixers for Philly Voice. So as I'll run this one back from earlier this offseason, any chance of a Mathurin extension? What do you think he would ask for now? And what do you think the Pacers would offer? Is that gap closable? The generic answer to the any chance of Mathurin extension is yeah. Do I think it's a high chance? No, I don't. Usually in these situations where a player's like clearly good, but their future's like not super obvious, it's hard for extensions to materialize, right? The player almost always wants to bet on themselves, and Mathurin should want to bet on himself. He's about to have potentially a chance to have a bigger role. Like Facci asked me when I went on Setting the Pace last week, is it possible Ben Mathurin leads the Pacers in scoring this year? Yes, it is totally possible Ben Mathurin leads the Pacers in scoring this year, right? Like and that would boost his value. Like he probably thinks what the Pacers would reasonably offer given his resume is too low. In fact, I would think that as Ben Mathurin. But if you're the Pacers, you're trying to pay him for what he's going to contribute to your team in 2 years when Haliburton is back. And so even if he does ball out this year, it's hard for them to really pay for that, right? So finding that middle ground is very hard. And I think finding good contract comps for Mathurin is very hard. Like Trey Murphy is probably better than him. Like he got whatever he got, $25 million a year, a little more than that. Jalen Green, who signed that huge deal a few years ago, like that's probably too rosy for Ben Mathurin in the $30 million a year range. But like sub 20 seems so low that it's like, why would Ben Mathurin even take this right now? Just bet on yourself at that point. That's barely over the mid-level, right? So what would the Pacers offer? They'd probably offer him a deal to be like 6 starter level player, which would be in the low 20s. Like if I were running the Pacers, what would I actually offer? What would I be comfortable with Ben Mathurin signing, right? Something between like 18 and 22 million a year, which sounds insulting. He's very talented, but that's the role he's probably going to have on the Pacers if they're back at their peak with this group. So if you're Mathurin, you probably think, man, I could get higher than that. Like if you score 20 points a game in the NBA, like you get paid a lot of money, right? Like he could reasonably do that this year. Like he probably wants 25 million a year to feel comfortable taking it right now. So I mean, I guess those numbers sound close enough to be closable, but if I'm both parties, I would just like more information, right? To really know. That's risky for both parties. Mathurin could be awesome this season, and the Pacers could be like, oh man, we got to pay him a lot of money to keep him, but they should want to do that. That's what restricted free agency is for. And Mathurin could be bad this year, and then, he could lose some money by going on 4 years of like, well, he doesn't quite fit. So it's just tricky for me to imagine this getting done, even though he is clearly, again, I have to do this every time because people never are listening. We are just talking about contracts. I think Ben Mathurin is good. I think he's going to have a good season for the Pacers, right? It's just about contractually, given the Pacers' distance from the tax next year, their competitive window, how like the constant questions throughout his career about fit with the Pacers style, and some of that's on the Pacers too, right? They've got to switch the way they play to help him. I just don't think that there's a deal that makes sense for both parties this offseason, unless there's some new information that pops up. Maybe these restricted guys have signed by the time this episode comes out, like Thomas and Giddey and Kuminga and all those guys. And if those guys' deals come in lower, yeah, maybe there's something that makes sense. Maybe Mathurin would lower what he deems a reasonable deal, but I would imagine this one goes into the season And also, like, there's a chance if Mathurin is a guy that the Pacers want to trade for something else, that they would not want to extend him because it's easier to trade him if he's not extended. If you get extended, you're subject to something called the poison pill rule. So provision, excuse me. I don't want to get into that, but regardless, I feel like the most likely answer is no. No extension makes sense for either side, and I don't think either side should really want to pursue it that hard, given how Mathurin's career's gone and given the Pacers situation. And that doesn't mean that the Pacers don't value Mathurin, right? It just means that for both sides, more information might make more sense. Question 2 from Nathan at Nathan of Note. His name is Nathan. Shocker. Says, I'll be curious what it would take for this team, in your opinion, to be buyers at the trade deadline this year, and also what it would take for them to be sellers, or are they simply going to get through this year and see what happens? And that is a great question because, look, the Pacers trade deadline is going to be one of the weirder ones in the league. Boston's probably going to be in the same boat, so maybe not weirder in terms of unique, but when you're in a gap year, even if you're playing awesome, like let's say the Pacers get to the trade deadline in like 6th, right? And they could push for something like to make the playoffs. For what? Like, without Haliburton, what is their true ceiling? Like, do they want to be buyers? For them to be buyers, they would have to be buying someone that's good now and is still like 25 or younger. And that player happens to become available this season for some reason or another. But that would be something that I would think they'd be interested in regardless of the season, right? So that would make them a buyer at the trade deadline, but that wouldn't change from my stance right now. I'm talking on July 30th. That's just what they should be interested in doing anyway. There would be a world where what I just said, like they're the 6th seed come the trade deadline, 5-4, even higher than that, right? If they're 8th or higher, they could consider something like this, where it's like trade a 2nd round pick for someone that they can get and stay under the tax that would be in their rotation, right? That's reasonable. They have a lot of young guys who are unproven. Maybe some of them aren't ready for big minutes. Maybe they're banged up at one position or another. Maybe a really good center is available that they could get and stay under the tax for like minor assets. That would be reasonable, right? Because there is value, of course, if we're talking about this season being about learning about, Nembhard as a lead ball handler and Mathurin as a starter and Siakam as a number 1 option. And like, can Nesmith get better? Learning what's going on at center, like learning is still important. You're going to get that over 82 games. You could also learn about them in a playoff setting. Like that would have some tangible value to the Pacers. Obviously, I think they have to consider their draft pick at some point. But to put that all together, like it's reasonable to think that they could try to get a little bit better in the season, but trading away major assets for a player that would only help them this year does not make good sense. So they would be buyers to me if, like I said, a good young player that they would have for multiple years or have team control for multiple years becomes available. That would be the reason to be a buyer. But sellers is just so obvious, right? And it's not even to say they should be sellers. Like standing pat-ish probably makes the most sense. Like the thing that differentiates them from the Celtics this year is both teams are doing this term stinks, but people keep saying gap year, right? So I'll say gap year. The Celtics are older. Like the Pacers gap year is much more straightforward because if they're trying to win and trying to develop, that's a pretty clear overlap. Like I mentioned on the Veteran Questions show last week, they only have 3 players on the team with more than 5 years of experience. And so everyone else is either inexperienced or young by default. And so you're like, if you're playing Nembhard, Nesmith, Mathurin, Toppin, Sheppard, Walker, Jackson, I guess Huff, if you're playing all those guys every single night, you are both trying to win and develop at the same time, right? Whereas Boston is like older. That's only relevant because like the seller goal for them is harder. Like the guys that are good on their team that they would trade away as sellers would basically just be McConnell and Siakam. And then like, what are you doing when Haliburton comes back? So sellers would be like the smallest pieces if they could get assets for them, right? And that's possible. That's something they would think about, but that's also hard to really imagine unless their season is just such a disaster. Like they're like 13th place and everybody's hurt, right? Yeah, then you try to get more assets and load up for the future with what you'd consider pieces that are not a part of your future. That's where this gets interesting is by February, like I talked about Mathurin's future, by February, they need to know who is a part of their short and long-term future beyond this season because everything else would carry into free agency. And that will kind of decide their buyer seller path. Do they know Mathurin is going to be on the team or not? Then they could end up looking to sell him. Same with lots of other young guys who either become extension eligible soon or now, right? So I think sellers, air quotes, to the extent that they'd be selling players for picks or players for parts is more likely, not because they'll be trying to get worse, but just because of their outlook. And buyers is possible in a way that they'd be buying at any time. So much more to come, including Jarus Walker's most natural position and many other questions here on Locked On Pacers. Before we get into any of that, let's talk about 5-Hour Energy. Time to fuel it up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings back the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you are sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course, or even off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. 5-Hour Energy comes through in that way. If you're golfing with friends like me, just to have a good time, it's a great way for it to go down. We can wedge on random holes. You can play on weird courses. You can throw out those odd challenges. Golf's just about a good time with good people and good flavors too. And the grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down that beverage cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5 and then hourenergy.com, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is valid until September 30th. On one order, can't be used with other promotions. And this is not good on subscription orders, but if you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for checking in and making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On NBA. They'll have the latest and greatest from around the association, regardless of the team that it happened on. I'm usually on every Wednesday, but not this week because I'm on vacation, hence why this is a super pre-recorded episode. At Big Hams, Big Hams at Big Indiana Dad, great Twitter existence, says, what positions do you see Jarus getting run at this year? What's a weird lineup you want to see this season? What does Furphy need to do to get better and to pass Sheppard in the depth chart? And who is one previous Pacer still playing that would fit this team well? I mean, does Paul George count? Actually, maybe not anymore, honestly, given what's kind of happened to his career. Okay, Jarus first. They kind of, developed him towards playing 3 last year. And some of that was that's the most easy way for him to have gotten minutes. And it worked. He played way more games and way more minutes. And this year, that's probably definitely the case, right? He could be the 3 next to Toppin and either Huff or Jackson, and then the backcourt of, Sheppard, McConnell with the bench. But him being it seems like his size is a natural 4, but they still have Siakam and Toppin for a while. So they kind of have to balance the present and long term with him. But I think most of his minutes will once again come at the 3, which is fine. He can guard up, he can guard down, he can switch in those lineups. But those types of players, those wings that are on the perimeter, are the guys they should want to get Jarus reps against. So I think the 3 is fine. That gives him chances on the perimeter. Let him take some jumpers. Let him explore the studio space. Letting him get as many chances as he can to get better and refine his skills should be a very important goal for the Pacers this season. What's a weird lineup that you want to see this season? Weird is tricky. I did a lineup show earlier last week where I dove into some stuff that I found interesting, or their best offensive or defensive group. And a lot of that came down to how they should use their new guys. But I'm always interested in seeing players do new things, right? Nesmith at the 4 was a heavy focus of that episode. Nembhard at the 1's really a new thing that's going to happen a lot this year. So let's do a zany lineup that makes sense of a bunch of players at sort of unnatural positions, right? Nesmith at the 4, but still a bigger group. So it's Nesmith, Walker, Nembhard, Furphy, and Toppin at the 5 or something. That way everybody's kind of learning a new spot, but everybody is still doing something of note, because that's something they need to figure out this year. Who can play other positions? Because that could help them deciding who to keep and not keep in the future. What does Furphy need to do to get better and to pass Sheppard in the depth chart? Why can't Sheppard get better ahead of Furphy in the depth chart? Make shots. Sheppard has that problem too, where he's not making shots, and that could make Furphy pass him, even though Sheppard has been billed as a shooter and he's shot well in postseasons. His regular season shot has not been consistent. They both, in theory, could have similar skill sets right now. Obviously, Sheppard's much older, so investing time and resources into developing Furphy makes good sense. But making threes, making jumpers would be a huge part of it. And if Furphy can continue to have the athletic pop towards the rim that he has, because Sheppard drives sometimes, but it's not very often. It's not for a lot of finishes. It's to tilt the defense and get off the ball. That would make Furphy a more effective player. Those would be the areas that stand out. On defense, I see them currently, Sheppard being the better defender. Furphy, I think, would have a slightly higher ceiling just because he's taller on that end of the floor. One previous Pacer that's still playing that would fit the Pacers well. The temptation to say Miles Turner is very high. I will not do that. But I did go to center right away just because of the opening at that spot. But there's not Sabonis would actually, this current season without Haliburton, fit pretty well. I don't know how well they would work as a tandem necessarily, although any good screener would make Haliburton's life exceedingly easy. Paul George, obviously at his apex, superstar level dude, would be great. If Vic could reach those old heights, that would be great. That's a good one. There's a lot of like decent answers to this. Thad Young would be a good one. He would help. I guess not anymore. He's so old. Like present ability level, this is actually quite challenging. I'm sure I'm missing someone obvious that people are like slamming the desk telling me to say. There's a lot of decent ones, but no perfect one. I'm upset with myself for not getting the perfect answer, but some combination of those guys that I just said. Sid at Sid Resor, who has a squid in his name, says, what are the chances Aaron Nesmith is a player that takes a big leap next season in the scoring department? Seems like his ability to get to the rim has gotten better, but his ability to finish has not. I share that opinion that it is possible that he is one of those guys that develops. One of my first ever clips of him, I'm mentioning this as like a discussion of his growth with the Pacers. They played the Hornets in a preseason game. It was like his first game with the Pacers in like a real NBA setting, not summer league. And he had 3 drives in that game, and they weren't like pretty finishes or pretty results of plays, but I went, oh, look at that. Like he's putting the ball on the floor, and maybe there's something to that. And then it didn't really happen a lot his first season with the Pacers, right? His 2-point percentage that year was still, to this day, the worst season he's had inside the arc, and Aaron Nesmith was still good that year. He shot well enough. His defense was solid, but he didn't make shots. And then the last 2 years, his 2-point percentage has been 58%-ish. And of course, his 3 is just money, right? So he clearly has gotten better toward the rim pop. And that to me is what the traditional discussion of young players is, of the game slowing down. He catches, and now if he has space to shoot, he realizes that. If he's getting closed out at quickly, he realizes he can fake and put it on the floor. And then last year, that was a lot of like one dribble moves. And then, 2 years ago. And then last year, that was a lot of like toward the rim moves where he could finish and stuff. So if you go look at his actual finishing numbers, you are a little bit right. So at the rim, he was 71.4% last year. That's very good. 69.9% the year before. So like a 1.5% growth. That like over a full season, you would barely notice, but it's a 6% growth over his first season, right? Where he got a lot better last year was in the paint shots, but his mid-range shots were a mess. Last year, 10 to 16 feet was his worst year as a Pacer, ironically, for a shot that he like got kind of good at 2 years ago. And then long twos, which albeit he doesn't take them very often, 8.4, let me get this right. 2.6% of his shots. So who really cares? That was by far his career low from that distance. So I would say like the next Nesmith offensive step is 3-level score, right? Really nailing in those mid-rangers, because I know he can finish. He's got the athleticism to go through guys. He's fearless going toward the rim, and the game really slowed down for him to allow him to get moving toward the rim. And in general, just like making, like this was an improvement, albeit slightly. 2% fewer of his shots last season were assisted. Like he has his own creation ability to some extent. Still almost all of his shots, like 95 out of 100, are assisted. That would be the next step, is like he can actually catch it, not set up, and handle in a way that lets him create a shot for himself or the Pacers in a way that's meaningful, because he's an awesome play finisher. I don't think people realize how awesome 65% true shooting is. That's insanely good, especially for a defender who's a plus level defender, right? Nesmith is, I'm stupid high on Aaron Nesmith. He's a very good player at age 25, low turnover rate, right? Like the perfect fifth Pacer, the brick walls, the would die for this stuff in the first round of the playoffs last year. Like that's who this dude is. So all his next stuff is just like connecting what he's currently good at. Right now that he can go towards the rim, can he like back it out? Can he hit the mid-rangers with any consistency? Can he handle around a screen in a way that either gets him a shot or opens something up for a big, right? That's all the next steps offensively. Defensively, he's chasing the ghost for forever of fouls, right? He got better at this last year, certainly. His fouls per 36, first 4 seasons of his career, 4.7, 4.4, 4.7, 4.3. Last year, 3.7. That's very good because he's playing a good amount. Like that is keeping him away from fouling out very often. That's still something that he needs to get like down so he can be playing as often as possible, because he's basically fouling once every 10 minutes of action. Like cutting that down just a little bit would be huge for him. I mean, he's just going to be forever bound by being 6'5". Like he can guard up. He's guarded down before too. He can guard lots of positions, but if he, if he could guard 6'9" guys every night, that'd be huge for the Pacers. So any sort of stocky growth, I guess, would be helpful. I think putting together like a really, really consistent score from everywhere season would be great. We'll see what that looks like without Haliburton. And I guess passing development would be a little thing. His assist percentage is very low, but he's not really a creator. And that goes back to what I said about being that creator. Can he open things up for other guys? Can he use his gravity in other ways besides just making a crap ton of shots every single game? Aaron Nesmith's a really good player. Good question. Okay, 2 more coming here, including the interrogation of Tony. about his Ben Sheppard takes. We'll do that and more coming up here on Locked On Pacers. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Or second listen. Let's keep going in the Central Division for these poker rounds. Locked On Bucks, Miles Turner's team. How do they feel about the upcoming season? How good they could be? Where they stand in the East? Hearing a lot of analysis that has the Bucks somewhere between 4 and 6-ish. Where do you think? Where do Locked On Bucks think? Go there to check out the latest from the land of Milwaukee. The Pacers will be playing at least 4 times this season. At the Hasselhoff, Ryan, who's been asking questions for forever, much appreciated, says, you mentioned building a castle on Ben Sheppard Island. What makes you so confident? I like him, but he has yet to show the shooting skills anticipated. That is true. Struggles from the free throw line in college, which is often a strong indicator, though he shot those well in the NBA on low attempts. It's so weird because he has stretches where, so he's 33% his career from 3. That's not very good. He has stretches where it's like, yep, clear shooter, right? The start of last season, before his injury, threes looked pretty good. I can't sort this. 40% through those first 13 games. Then he misses about a month. And then till the All-Star break-ish, he was still hitting his threes at a pretty good clip, right? In a way that made me feel pretty good about it. 37% from that return date in December through the break, and that includes some clunkers in mid-December. And then for a while, he was not good. He was not making nearly enough threes. In fact, he made one total 3 from March 11th till March 27th. And he played, this looks like 10 games in that stretch, right? Like that was where I kept making the point that like, even I, someone who always bills Ben Sheppard as this low mistakes player, I was like, how many misses constitutes a mistake? Post All-Star break last year, 27.7% from 3. That shook the castle. That shook the Ben Sheppard Island castle. We were worried about our foundation for a while. So he had like 3 segments of season last year where really awesome stretch shooting, really fine stretch shooting, and then a very bad stretch shooting. In the playoffs, he made 39.5%, aka 40% of his threes, which is good. In the postseason, he has made threes. I think in the year before that, in the postseason, he was also quite good. I'm going to his game log once again. Rookie year, Ben Sheppard made 38% of his playoff threes. So that's part of it, is that 1, at Belmont, lights out. 2, in the playoffs, he's been good. And 3, there's been lots of like significant stretches of his career where he has made the threes. Now, obviously, the total percentage is what it is, and that matters the most, right? That number has to matter the most. He started his rookie season pretty cold as well through the All-Star break of his. I'm doing a mess of a job clicking around on Basketball Reference. Yeah, he was at 28.8% pre-All-Star break as a rookie. Then he started to play more that year, like New Year's, basically, right? And then for the rest of the season, post All-Star, he was drilling them, at least much better, about 35% league average-ish, right? So it's just like long stretch of good, long stretch of bad, with choppy parts in the middle. Then the playoffs, it's been good. I think on balance, given the form, given that the Pacers really encourage him to shoot, I just believe in it. It's just a gut thing that doesn't really make sense. And you kind of have to have that belief to have the castle on Sheppard Island, because without the shot, he is, I understand why fans think this, like, why is he even playing? Because, so my case for him is that if the threes do go, the low mistake style is so valuable. 6.4% turnover rate is crazy, right? He fights like hell on defense. He moves the ball at a decent level, right? He's a higher assist rate than Aaron Nesmith, right? Like that's hard to imagine, but he does. He moves the ball at a decent level, and he is mistake free in a way that like other players, his teammates on the floor, it helps them because they know where Ben Sheppard's going to be. They know what he's going to do. So he had some tougher moments defending in the playoffs this year. I think that kind of hurt his stock a little bit. Whereas like when he was put on the best guys, he was probably the worst option they were willing to put on those guys, and it didn't go awesome, right? That hurt. He can't guard stars, but he is a good defender against like basically the substar level of player. And so I believe in him as a 3 and D, like pretty good 3, pretty good D, but not elite at either. And people talk about that as like a low ceiling type. Like people are like, well, other players have a higher ceiling than him. And I'm like, I get what you're saying. Like more varied skill sets are more valuable than you're good at 2 things. But 3 and D at its peak is really good. Like really, really good. Really high ceiling on that kind of player. And he's made a good percentage of his 2s both seasons, 56% his first year, 59% last year, 88% from the line. He never takes free throws. So the percentage honestly doesn't matter that much. So I don't know if he'll ever have like a ton of toward the rim pop. I don't know how great of a shooter he'll ever actually become. Taking 70% of his shots from 3 and making 33% his career is like, yikes, maybe those need to go in. But there's been enough long stretches of success. The technique is good. The playoff performance has been good. The college threes were good, but you're right to point out the free throw percentage. But I believe he will be a plus 3-point shooter in his career. Let me say this. I thought the same about Chris Duarte. That obviously did not happen. So obviously we're all projecting what we think. And if everybody knew everything for certain, they'd be the best at this. But that's why I believe in Ben Sheppard so much is, one, I value his skill set quite a bit. Two, I believe in the shot. And that type of player can be valuable, even if it is at 2 guard, where that's probably like the least valuable position in the NBA to me for all sorts of reasons. Our last question today comes from, I cut off the handle. Miles Burner is his name. That's funny. Who gets the first crack at starting and backup center spots? Great question. I have mostly this offseason thought that my answer was Jackson starter, Huff backup. Jackson got paid more than Huff is paid. Jackson knows the system better. He was backup last year. Who knows how good J Huff will be? They don't know that. They've never seen him in their system, right? I think that a lot of typical NBA factors suggest Isaiah Jackson will be the starter and Huff will be the backup. But when I went through the numbers for my J Huff lineups thing that I did when I ran through lineups last Tuesday, I believe, a lot of stuff I walked away from was like, man, J Huff's best, even if Siakam was worse, like the type of player Siakam is, pairs very well with J Huff. And the closest skill set to Miles Turner, who fit very well with starters last year, is obviously J Huff, right? And so that makes me wonder if they'll just go on fit and start J Huff and have Isaiah Jackson still play with the starters a good amount, but come off the bench. We've seen in the past that Jackson and Nembhard have good synergy, like you kind of want them together. I think in your best defensive lineups, Isaiah Jackson will be on the floor, and maybe they just want that to be the starting 5, right? Open the game with as much defense as you can. Like, you could make good cases for both guys. I was pretty entrenched in Jackson as the starter until I did the deeper dive into when Huff was the best last year for Memphis. And then I was like, oh, maybe Huff actually should start. And the second any sub is made, even if let's say the first sub of the game is, actually, I have no idea, McConnell for Mathurin, right? Bring in Jackson right then. Like, he should be the 6th man basically every game. Here's the other question about the starter versus backup center. Maybe fit makes this matter, right? Maybe J Huff's fit is so good that it actually matters what unit Huff is with and what unit Jackson's with. But I would say this, there's a chance it doesn't actually matter who starts. Like, they're both negligibly different in terms of how they boost lineups they're in. They just do it in different ways, and that it doesn't actually matter. Like, by the end of the year, it's like, well, if Jackson starts, that's fine. If Huff starts, that's fine. Just have them on the floor with the lineups that make the most sense for them. And so if that happens to be Huff starting, that makes sense. But I think right now I would say my gut is 60 to 65% Jackson starts, and then the rest of that percentage goes to Huff. So close enough that it could go either way. Training camp could decide this. One of them's coming off an Achilles tear. J Huff will start games this year. Like, back-to-back showing the season, I would not be surprised if Isaiah Jackson isn't playing in both halves of those. So that's my take on the center spot, but I understand how that could be changed with dynamics. If Jackson looks awesome, screw everything about fit with J Huff, play that guy. He's younger, and they've developed him every step of the way. Thank you for the submittals today. The rest of the questions, if you asked one, will be coming on Friday in the second version of this mailbag. My voice is fading too. This is like my 4th pre-recorded show of this day, and I still have 2 more to do. My Lord. Thank you all for listening so much. Back Friday with part 2 of this mailbag. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony Tyrese, this podcast at Locked On Pacers on both Twitter and Instagram. Thank you all so much for listening. Back soon, talking more Pacers. Till then, everybody, have a wonderful day.